Jaya Shriman Narayana. Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Jaya Shri Guru. Sanatana Dharma Jayate. Dharma Rashtra Jayate. Victory to the Dharma nation. Evam Bhavatu. May it be so. Very good. Well, again, welcome everyone to my talk on the Discord server. First of all, before I begin, I want to thank you all for being here very, very much. I know that all of you are very, very sincere individuals, very devoted individuals, and it is absolutely wonderful to be here in your company, to have your association. So thank you for being here. I also want to thank the moderators. I never do that enough, unfortunately. The moderators are so good at what they do, and they're so hidden behind the scenes that I often, very sadly, forget to thank them, both here on Discord as well as whenever we do any of our live streams. So I want to thank the moderators very much for all of the amazing work that you do to make both the live streams but also the Discord server a truly wonderful place, a place that is welcoming, that is inviting, that is safe, that is wholesome and healthy, and a positive place where people can come together and speak about spiritual things. So thank you to the moderators. As people may know, especially individuals who live in the United States of America, we celebrated what is officially called Thanksgiving Day, just 2 days ago actually, just on Thursday. And this is indeed one of the major holidays here in the United States. And Thanksgiving Day, of course, has a very, very good, very important idea and sentiment behind it. It is the idea that at least once per year, at the very least, it is nice for individuals to get together with their families, so thus families to get together around their dinner tables and in their homes, and to especially on that day give thanks, and originally give thanks to God. This was the original idea of Thanksgiving Day before it became secularized and commercialized, which is sadly what it is now to some extent. Still, there are many people who actually take this day very seriously as practically a religious holiday, where again the idea is that we give thanks to God for all of the blessings that we received in the previous year and throughout our lives. So again, that is the idea of Thanksgiving Day, which was celebrated just the day before yesterday. So given the fact that this Thanksgiving Day was just 2 days ago, I thought it would be very appropriate actually to look at the spiritual dimensions of what it means to have appreciation, to have gratitude, and to give thanks to God, and not just to God, but to all those around us who have helped us in every way and in any way in our life. So thus, this is why I am giving this talk today, practicing gratitude and thanksgiving in spiritual life. Before I begin, actually, I want to first tell a story. And let me warn you, this is a powerful story. It is a story that is in some ways quite sad, but it's a story that needs to be told because it so well illustrates what is the idea of gratitude and why it is of crucial importance that we practice gratitude and giving thanks. This is a story of a person who was Hindu. He was born Hindu. He was a father, and he was himself a very religious person. He was somebody who, throughout his life, tried to take guidance from the Bhagavad Gita as often as possible and other Vedic scriptures. He was someone who, as a result of living a very good lifestyle, a nice mixture of both spirituality, but then also making sure that he achieved excellence in the world, he became quite successful, actually. So this man was very wealthy. Well, this man had several children, And they also, like himself, were Hindu. They also were, at least nominally, practicing Sanatana Dharma. Well, he had an elder son. This was the oldest son, the oldest child that he had. And this son, very specifically, had always been a little bit of a problem child. He tended to be somewhat rebellious throughout his life, especially his teenage years. He tended to be somewhat self-involved, etc. And despite the fact that his father was again, quite religious, the son himself wasn't. You know, he thought that religion, well, was all right for weak people, which is sadly what a lot of people think. It's all right for weak people who need the idea of God, you know, to give them comfort in life, etc., etc. So in other words, he was thinking like the typical secularist, not taking spirituality very seriously, and thus truthfully, in the back of his mind, he also really didn't take his father very seriously. Well, one thing about this son is that, again, being somewhat materialistic, for years and years, he was really into sports cars. He had not owned one, but he would fantasize about them, and he knew everything about the latest cars, what car is the fastest, what car is the best, which looks best, etc., etc. And he had thrown the strongest hints, not really hints, but the strongest hints for the last year to his father, that there was a specific car that he wanted. It was a very specific sports car, and he had his mind and his heart bent upon this car. And the car itself cost about $60,000, something like that. So not cheap, not a cheap car. And this, again, he had not even turned 18 yet, I should mention that. But his birthday was coming up. He had just graduated high school, like about a week or two beforehand, but his birthday was coming up, his 18th birthday. Now, what's interesting is, again, he had thrown all these hints to his father, so he was expecting that, maybe his father will actually buy him this car. In fact, his father had also kind of hinted back that, yes, son, don't worry, on your 18th birthday, something wonderful is going to happen. Well, the 18th birthday comes about, and they have a nice little birthday party for their son in their home, and his siblings are there, his father and his mother are there, etc. And they all begin to give him gifts. And his siblings give him gifts, friends give him gifts, his mother gives him gifts, everyone gives him gifts. Then finally, it is the turn of his father to give him a gift. Well, his father gives him what seems to be a box. It's something. It's wrapped up very nicely in present paper. And the son is wondering, what could this be? Maybe it's a box and there are keys to my car in it. Well, we'll see. Well, he quickly rips off the gift wrapping, and sadly for him, to his horror, what he sees is that it is a Bhagavad Gita, a hardcover Bhagavad Gita. And he looks at it, and the whole room goes silent because they can all see the disappointment in his face. And that disappointment turns to a little bit of anger even, and they all see this in his face. Well, after some time, he collects himself and he has his composure back. And he looks to his father, and in a very insincere way, and indeed with a little bit of anger in his voice, he says, "Thanks, Dad. Thanks for this." And that ends the party because the son abruptly leaves. Well, soon after that, the son decides indeed to leave the family home. So several weeks after, he gets an apartment, he packs up his things, and very unexpectedly, because he hadn't really spoken about his future plans, he leaves. And he takes all of his possessions with him, and he makes sure to take that Bhagavad Gita just to maintain the bitterness in his heart. He throws the Bhagavad Gita violently into the back seat of his old car that he ended up buying for himself, some used car, and he drives off into his future. 10 years goes by, and sadly, the son never spoke to his father again. 10 years go by. In the meantime, the son gained an education. The son ended up with a good job and making a good amount of money. The son ended up even getting married and expecting his first child on the way. But again, 10 years had gone by, and in all that time he was so bitter toward his father that he did not speak to him. Well, one day he gets the call from his mother that his father had passed away. And at that point, something strikes him, and he has these mixed feelings. On the one hand, he still has this anger toward his father, that his father did not get him that sports car that he wanted for $60,000. But on the other hand, he loved his father, and he knew his father was a good man. So tears came to his eyes, and on thinking of what happened, he did cry. At that point, he remembered that Bhagavad Gita that he had had for all that time, and at some point he just threw it onto a bookshelf that he had in a bookcase with other books that he had. And he decided, let me go look at that Bhagavad Gita once and for all. I never even opened it. I never even cracked the spine. He goes to his study. He goes to the bookcase. He finds that Bhagavad Gita and he takes it out. And he begins to peruse the pages of the Bhagavad Gita. And he looks at one verse that is profound in its wisdom. And then he looks at another. And then as he's about to turn another page, he realizes, oh, that's weird. I didn't notice this before. There's something in between two of the pages of this book. And he opens those two specific pages. And he realizes there's some sort of paper there, something that is there. He sees that it is something like a note. And he opens it. And he sees it is a note. It's a note from his father. And the note says something to the effect of, my son, I love you more than life itself. You have made me proud to be your father. And this is for you. And there was a check for $60,000. You can imagine the son's reaction to that. You can imagine the reaction of any of us to that. It is the nature of this world and the presence of God that we are indeed at all times surrounded by the blessings of God. For an individual who is spiritually minded, for an individual who is sincere, for an individual who has the vision, who has the eyes to actually see, we realize that the world around us sustains us in so many ways. We are so fortunate to be surrounded by so many blessings, some of which, sadly a tiny portion of which we are aware of, the vast majority of which we are not even aware of or only slightly aware of. It is a blessing that we have air to breathe. It is a blessing whenever we have food to eat. It is a blessing that we have water to drink. It is a blessing that we have anyone in our lives who love us. It is a blessing, it is a blessing, it is a blessing. But again, sometimes those blessings are not known to us. Often it is the case that the reason why we don't recognize these blessings is precisely because we're not thinking in terms of God's blessings. Rather than focusing on the positive things of this world, the things that come into our life that sustain us. Instead, too many of us focus on the opposite. We focus on the negative. We focus on what we do not have, on what we want, rather than what we have been given. And again, the vast majority of these blessings that are in our lives are not even recognized by us. And that is the moral of this powerful story, is that this son was surrounded by blessings, given to him by God, given to him by those in his life who loved him, including his own father. But very sadly, he did not recognize them, even when they were there right in front of him. He did not quite understand the character of his father and how fortunate as a son he was to have this individual as his father. Well, now he did recognize. It's sad that in this particular case it took such a dramatic turn of events for him to realize these blessings. But he did finally realize those blessings. And let me tell you, to give really the end of the story, he held on to that Bhagavad Gita as the most precious thing in his life thereafter. What we're talking about today is gratitude. And truthfully, it is in recognition of the blessings around us. It is when we are cognizant of all the blessings that are around us that we then have gratitude. Because what does it mean to have gratitude? It means that we are thankful. It means we have appreciation. We have appreciation for something good that has come to us. But again, even though for all of us really, there is so much good that comes in our direction, we don't see it very often. We see some of it. We see the most obvious things. But we don't see the subtle blessings that are there. We don't see the blessings that are very often of true importance. But when we indeed recognize those blessings, all the blessings that are there in our life, the ones that are seen, the ones that are temporarily unseen, it is at that point that we then have gratitude. Now, how do we recognize the blessings in our lives? Because again, this is true for so many of us, that we don't recognize them all. Well, we should aspire to recognize all the blessings in our lives. And how do we do this? Well, first and foremost, it is in having a positive mindset. It's when we have a positive mindset, and not the opposite, not a negative mindset, that we then begin to realize all the blessings in our lives. Because when you have a positive mindset, you then open yourself to recognition of the good. Positivity being good. We open ourselves to recognition of the good, so thus recognition of all the blessings in our lives. So thus, what I'm saying is, we need to be white-pilled, not black-pilled. When you're a black-pilled, you recognize nothing but your own ingratitude. But rather, when you're a white-pilled, that is when you have a positive approach to life, a positive approach to people, to the future, when you have hope. It is at that point that you can open yourself to realizing all of the blessings that are there in your life. The opposite of having a positive mindset is, of course, to have a negative mindset. And this means self-centeredness. Absolute self-centeredness. It tends to be, very sadly, the individuals who are more self-centered, who do not have the ability to recognize the blessings in their life and to therefore have the gratitude that is necessary to, again, have an even happier life. Self-centeredness is the most debilitating character flaw that an individual can have. Indeed, it is self-centeredness, as we know, that has led to our illusion. It is when we are self-centered in this egotistical sort of way, rather than God-centered, that we then fall into illusion. And indeed, this is the very crux, this is the very root, this is the very foundation of our problem of why we suffer, is because we are self-centered. When you are self-centered, rather than achieving all the good and all the happiness that you want, the very opposite happens. Self-centeredness leads to misery. Self-centeredness leads to negativity. There are very few people who are self-centered, who I've encountered in my life, who aren't also very negative people. When you're self-centered, you tend to focus on what you want that you don't have, rather than, again, the blessings in your life. So self-centeredness leads to negativity, and thus it leads to ingratitude. Thus, this is why people who are self-centered are often called ingrates. They are ingrates because they have ingratitude, they have the opposite of gratitude. And thus having this ingratitude, not having thanks to God and to others, to the people in our lives, to even the devas, the gods, etc., for all the blessings, it leads to that individual who is self-centered, not realizing all of the blessings in his or her life. Now, getting back to the idea of gratitude, thanksgiving, etc. There is a positive closed circuit that I want to talk about. This is a positive closed circuit. This is what I call it, and you'll see why I call it that in just a moment. And that is this. If you can please just follow these steps. It's a little bit more difficult because for the people on Discord, of course, you can't see me, you can only hear me. But there are really 5 steps to this. First of all, again, there are the blessings that are in our lives that we are surrounded by 24 hours a day. We have an infinite number of blessings from God, from those around us. When we recognize those blessings, what happens is we have appreciation. We have appreciation for the blessings themselves, but more importantly, we have an appreciation for the source of those blessings, whether it is our own father or our own mother or friends or other people we love, or whether it is from God himself. When we recognize those blessings, we then begin to have an appreciation for the blessings, but more importantly, for the people who gave us those blessings. As a result of this appreciation, we then have gratitude. We have gratitude towards those individuals. We understand that having given us these blessings, whatever those blessings are, either spiritual or material, we then should feel gratitude toward them. We should feel thanks, but then we actually perform the active action of actual thanksgiving. That is, in our words, in our thoughts, in our actual activities, we thank those people who gave us those blessings. We thank them. And then, to close the circuit, because of our thankful attitude, because of our attitude of appreciation and gratitude toward others, we receive even more blessings in the form of good karma, in the form of the mercy of God, in the form of the ever-increasing love that is given to us by those individuals who do indeed love us. So this is how this works, this positive closed circuit of gratitude, is that we recognize the blessings in our life, we have appreciation for those blessings and the people who provide those blessings, we have gratitude, we have thanksgiving, and as a result, we have more blessings. Isn't this a wonderful, very positive, let's say, closed circuit of appreciation and blessings, appreciation and blessings? This is how life is meant to be. This is indeed how life is meant to be. Let me read one verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is a beautiful verse that mentions the importance of blessings upon us and how we are indeed blessed. So this is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 28, verse 17. And it proceeds in this way. The Lord is eternally very beautiful, and he is worshipable by all the inhabitants of every planet. He is ever youthful and always eager to bestow his blessings upon his devotees. Beautiful verse. Truly a beautiful verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. And in this verse, what is being explained is indeed that it is the very nature of God to bestow blessings. God never bestows the opposite. God bestows only blessings upon everything, upon all of reality, both spiritual and material. Everything that exists is sustained by the blessings of Bhagavan Sriman Narayana. So again, a very beautiful verse that explains to us that this is the nature of God, that he is always eager to bestow his blessings upon his devotees. He is eager to give us his blessings. So thus, what are we seeing here? Thus far, we are seeing that there is a reciprocal relationship between ourselves and others. And let me say this generally, others, because this is true of ourselves with God, this is true of ourselves even with other living beings, with other living entities. that there is this reciprocation that takes place, that they bestow their blessings upon us. We in turn give thanks to them. We bestow blessings also upon them. Not so much upon God, but at the very least we bestow our devotion toward God. And then in turn we receive more blessings. And again, there is a reciprocation that takes place. So this is why indeed we are Vaishnavas, because it is in Vaishnava Dharma very specifically that we have this realization of the nature of reciprocal relationship. That this is what it means to be in truly loving relationship with others and certainly with God as well. That we give and we receive appreciation. And then we are given too. But then we also have to show appreciation. We also have to show gratitude. We also have to show thanksgiving toward others. Anyone who has helped us, and certainly toward God. So in this way, there is loving reciprocation between ourselves and others, in that both sides give and give and give, and both sides are thankful and thankful and thankful, and this goes on perpetually for all of eternity. In a very healthy, very beautiful, very loving relationship of reciprocation. Now I want to quote one more verse from Srimad Bhagavatam that is commenting along these lines. And this is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 21, verse 44. And it proceeds in this way. Whoever acquires the Brahminical qualifications, whose only wealth is good behavior, who is grateful, and who takes shelter of experienced persons, gets all the opulence of the world. I therefore wish that the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his associates be pleased with the Brahmana class, with the cows, and with me. Very nice verse. and I'm using that word very specifically. It's of course a profound verse, but it's also a very nice verse. It's a very happy verse. In which, again, we see this reciprocation that is taking place here. First of all, who is being spoken of here very specifically? Who is being spoken of here specifically is not just anyone, but interestingly, the Brahmana class. That is, those individuals who, in many ways, represent the very highest echelon of society. That is, individuals who are spiritual, individuals who are moral, individuals who are noble, who are upright in their ethical behavior, who are wise, etc., etc. That is who is being spoken of here. So this is laying down a standard for such individuals. In other words, what this verse is really saying is, if you are someone who you consider yourself the best, you consider yourself noble, well, this is what is expected of you, and this is what you are to expect. And again, just quickly, let's go through this. I'm not going to be commenting on this very in-depth the way that I often do with the live streams, but just so we get an idea of what is the gist of this verse. So first of all, there are several qualities that are mentioned, among which is being indeed grateful. An individual must be grateful if they consider themselves to be of this highest nobility, of this highest class, a Brahmana. So, being grateful, what happens as a result? This verse makes this very clear. Such a person gets all the opulence of the world. In other words, they get blessings. Exactly what we have been speaking about. When an individual shows gratitude, when an individual shows thanks for all of the good things in their life, what happens is they get further good things in their life. They get further blessings in their life. And this indeed is what it means to be a true Brahmana, to be an individual who, again, is a highly spiritual individual. So again, this is a very positive verse. Now, we can imply from this verse very logically, and it is indeed the implication, it is that we are implying this. Well, if it is indeed the case that if a person is grateful and they have gratitude and they get blessings, what if a person has ingratitude? What if they are indeed an ingrate? Well, obviously they will get the opposite. They will lose those blessings. And this is the thing. It is not that God is withdrawing the blessings. It is that you have rejected those blessings. If you do not have gratitude, you are indeed rejecting those blessings. God is giving you blessings, and you are saying nothing in return. So thus, you are rejecting those blessings. The blessings go away. And God will continue and continue and continue to try to shower you with blessings. But for as long as you do not have gratitude, you will not realize those blessings. So this, again, is why it is of such importance that when we have blessings in our life, and trust me, it doesn't matter who you are, you have blessings in your life from God. When we have that recognition of those blessings, this is how we will have gratitude. There are several forms that gratitude takes. Gratitude, thanksgiving, etc. This can be, again, toward the devas, toward the gods. They can be toward well-wishers, or they can be toward God. Let me very quickly go through this. The devas. The devas are those unseen, beneficent beings who are there around us, and very often they are, actually. Even to this day, even in the Kali Yuga, once in a while they do indeed come to earth, and we could be in the presence of a deva and not even recognize it. But indeed, blessings come to us very often from the gods and goddesses. They are the blessings of rain, they are the blessings of sunshine, they are the blessings of nature, they are the blessings of abundance, natural abundance, food, etc., etc. And there are so many blessings that come from the gods and the goddesses that we could not even list them all. I would have to spend the next hour or two just listing them. And even then, I would not exhaust the full list. So indeed, we can have gratitude and thanksgiving toward the devas, the gods and goddesses. Then we can have gratitude toward those in our lives who are fellow humans, who are well-wishers. So again, the sort of gratitude that son should have had toward his father. Well, we all have people in our lives, whether we recognize them or not, whether we are in a state of depression and we want to be bitter and pretend that we're all alone in the world. No, we have people who care about us. We have people who reach out to us. We have people who give to us of their abundance and who bless us in different ways. Well, we are to have gratitude and thanksgiving also toward those fellow humans who share their blessings with us. Whether we're speaking of parents, whether we're speaking of our own children, whether we're speaking of, again, friends, a spouse, a wife, a husband, etc. We are to express gratitude always. And finally, we are to express gratitude toward God. Finally, but not least, because truthfully, the latter two categories of beings who we should have gratitude toward, they themselves have their source in God, in Sriman Narayana. This being the case, then certainly we should always have gratitude toward God, and not just once a year, not just on Thanksgiving Day. Again, it is wonderful to have a full day, in America at least, where we give thanks and we're asked to remember the blessings in our lives. But when it comes especially to gratitude toward God, this is an attitude that we should have with us 24 hours a day. At all times we should be aware of the blessings that are coming to us like a never-ending stream, like a never-ending river coming from Vaikuntha itself and descending into our lives. We have to be aware of these blessings, and we have to be ever grateful for these blessings. And the way that we show our gratitude, especially for these blessings from God, is we reciprocate. In the same way that God gives to us, we give to God. And what do we give to God? What can we give to God that would be equal to the blessings that God gives to us? There is nothing equal. God has given us life. God has given us everything. But at the very least, what we can give back is our devotion. What we can give back to God is our very selves. God has given us life. Now let us dedicate that life that God has given us back to God. That is prapatti. That is self-surrender. God is the source of our very self. God has given us our very self. So thus, this is why we give our self back to God. in every way. Now, all that being said, in terms of very practically how to be thankful, there are many ways of being thankful. And this means, again, toward all three of these categories of beings, toward the devas, toward the well-wishers in our lives, toward God. And this corresponds with the three modes of action, that is, thoughts, words, and actions themselves. In each way, we are to be thankful. So again, whoever we are speaking of as far as the person who has given blessings in our life, certainly beginning in our very thoughts, we should have an attitude of appreciation. So inwardly, we should truly and sincerely recognize what they have done for us, and in our minds, we should have gratitude. But then, that gratitude has to be translated into actual words. We must never be afraid to say thank you. Thank you, thank you. And again, to whomever. Whoever the person is who has given us something good. And when I say give, I need to qualify this. Because people might be thinking, give actual things. No, actually, if someone even gives us their time, if someone gives us good counsel, if someone gives us their company at times when we are feeling lonely and helpless and hopeless. Not just things, but if they give us their time, their good counsel, their company, we should be thankful. So verbally, we should always thank the people around us, including God, including the devas, including the humans who have done good toward us. And then finally in actions. In the same way that others have done good toward us, we have to do good toward them. We, again, reciprocate in every way. If it's the devas, if it's the gods and goddesses, we should be cognizant of this fact. So thus, if we are in a place and there's been drought and it rains, I'm giving just the most obvious examples, and it begins to rain, we must thank the gods, even if it means just for 1 minute we go outside, we turn our face up to the heavens and we say, "Oh devas, thank you for this life-sustaining rain that you have now bestowed upon us." It means that toward humans, we thank them. We thank them verbally, to their face. We thank them over the phone. If we can't reach them, and we can only reach them through email or text, we thank them for any good thing that they have done toward us. When we were feeling sad, when we were feeling depressed, and they spoke to us for an hour and tried to cheer us up, we must thank them for that. And then, again, as far as actions, yes, we do and we do and we do. We reciprocate. We have to give back. People have given to us, well, we give to them. We give them a card. We give them a nice little present. We give them something in return. As far as the gods, yes, we do a little puja. We do a yajna to thank them. And then finally, when it comes to God, we give God everything. We give God our prayers of thanks. We give God our appreciation, and ultimately we give God ourselves. So there are many ways in which we can express thanks. We can express thanks in the form of prayer. Again, praying either to the gods or to God. We can give thanks by giving back somehow, very practically, giving our labor, giving an actual object, something to show our appreciation, but we give back. We can give back through charity. So let's say that we cannot even directly give back in action to the person who has helped us. Well, we do charity then toward others, and in that way it's a way of giving back generally to the community. And then finally, for God, we give back through seva. We give back through voluntary devotional work that is spiritual in nature and that is meant to serve God directly. We give back in this way. When we have such gratitude, such thanksgiving, when we have appreciation toward others and toward God, there are several wonderful benefits. Truthfully, before I gave this talk, I was trying to think of all the benefits, and I realized that there are actually too many to even speak about. Just in my mind, just sitting in contemplation, I came across dozens of good reciprocal things that can happen to us when we have this attitude of appreciation. But let me just talk about two of them very specifically. When we have appreciation and thanksgiving, first of all, this produces humility on our part, because we realize that what we have that is good in our life came not only from our hard labor alone. Much of it did, absolutely, but not without help. Again, not without those blessings of our parents, of friends who encouraged us along the way, of the gods, and ultimately of God himself. So when we realize this, we develop great humility, which is something that is crucial if we are going to be spiritual people. We must have humility. And indeed, when we have the ability to express thanks, we develop that humility that is necessary for us to continue to progress spiritually. The last thing that I want to talk about, as far as one of the benefits of having gratitude, is that we now have closeness toward those people who gave us those blessings. This is true for whether we're talking about humans or the gods or God. It is in expressing thanks that now there is a closeness of understanding, that there is a closeness of the heart, one could say, that ever deepens between ourselves and, again, whether it's our parents, whether it's friends, whoever has bestowed their blessings upon us, whether it's the gods. You see, when we are expressing thanks, what are we doing? We are communicating with the gods, and they hear that. They hear when we are grateful toward them for all of their blessings upon us, and they look upon us with even more affection, with even more love. So thus that closeness of relationship between ourselves and the gods also deepens. And then finally, that closeness between ourselves and God, Narayana, also deepens tremendously when we have this attitude of gratefulness toward God. Because we now are even more aware of God, of God's presence in our lives, of the goodness of God, etc., our dependency upon God. And this way, we continue to develop our awareness of God, our God consciousness. So thus, having gratitude is actually a part of sadhana. It is actually a very important part of sadhana, because when we are practicing gratitude toward God, again, it deepens our relationship with God because it makes us more aware of God at all times. I want to end this talk with just one more quote, and interestingly, this may surprise people, for those who know me, it shouldn't. This is not a quote from the Vedic scriptures, rather this is a quote from Cicero. Cicero, who was a very great Roman orator, writer, etc., politician, but he was known to have been a very wise individual. And this is what Marcus Tullius Cicero said about gratitude. Quote, "Gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all others." So in other words, gratitude is not just the greatest of virtue, but it is as a result of gratitude that all other virtues are born. So thus gratitude is foundational, and should be foundational to our way of being, if indeed we are to be noble individuals who are making spiritual progress in this life. Very good. So with that, I thank you all very much for listening to my discourse.